What would you do if the fate of your people was on the line? How far would you go to save them? Would you risk your reputation, your home, your money? Would you risk your life or that of your families? Would you risk everything for something greater than yourself? It is a question I've been asking myself whenever I think of the plot forged in secrecy. A plan so ambitious, I can hardly believe that not only one, but two of my very own ancestral grandfathers, Don Cristobal Colon and Rabbi Avraham Senior, were involved in it. I have often heard so many times that the Conversos have all but vanished. But how could we have thought so little of our people to think that they would just give up, or of Hashem has v'shalom, as to think that Hashem would not have a plan for his own people? How could we have forgotten them? But perhaps the secret plot to save the Jews was guarded better than we think.
And so the legend of Christopher Columbus was created, a boy born to a poor family of wool dyers in Genoa, who hung out at the docks studying ships and map-making. Somehow he learned navigational skills and decided that India could be reached by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. Despite his low status, he somehow managed to gain access to the royalty of Europe, free to wander the palaces of kings and queens. He spent a lot of time with royalty, entertaining them with the idea of an expedition to discover a new and faster route to India. He was a complete unknown to Queen Isabel of Spain, yet he convinced her to provide a large sum of money to search for this mythical route to riches. And what he discovered was not India at all, but a land that came to be known as America, or so goes the story as written by the doubting Washington Irving. May 20th, 1506. Only 2 years after his fourth and final voyage to the New World, Christopher Columbus, the famous explorer, is dying. Why he is dying is not known. His son and biographer Hernan would later say it was gout that took the life of his father. Still others ascribe the cause to something more sinister. They say he may have been poisoned to death by his enemies.
That everything we know about Columbus is wrong.
What in the world do you mean by that?
Basically, I have all the reasons to believe that he was born a Portuguese, that his father was a Portuguese prince from the royal family, that his mother was Portuguese but from a Jewish ascendancy family, and that he worked as a secret agent for the King of Portugal.
Aquí sí que es curioso, precisamente la familia genovesa con la que se identifica Cristóbal Colón, que es una familia de un tejedor de paños llamado Domenico Colombo, que está casado con una mujer llamada Susana Fontana Rosa, que esa es la tesis tradicional. Ahí, precisamente en ese punto de que fuera una familia humilde, es un punto que atacan todos o muchos de los investigadores que sustentan una tesis contraria, porque está en contra de una afirmación que hace Hernando Colón, su hijo, diciendo que ellos eran de una familia noble venida a menos por los tiempos de las guerras y por otras cuestiones.
Everything points to the fact that first he was not an Italian. He never wrote anything in Italian. Then the symbols used to sign, the symbols who would mean that his original name was Zarko. So the idea is that he was the son of a Zarko lady and the daughter of Gonçalves Zarco. And he was, probably the father was the infant, the Prince Dom Fernando of Portugal, who was a son of Dom Duarte. So basically, the data we have points to that he was Portuguese and the son of a Portuguese prince, and a woman he was not married with her, so that he didn't want to be classified as being a bastard. It's supposed that he was born in a village called Cuba in Alentejo. The first main island he found, he named it Cuba, because he had many connections with Jewish culture. He was interested in the Jewish tradition, so it probably could be the son of a Jewish mother. Maybe the Zarco family was Jewish. Well, after his first official trip to the official discovery of America, when he came back, what he did was not to go to Sevilla. He went to Lisbon, and he stopped here, and he went to see the king, who was upriver in a little town, upriver, because there was a plague in Lisbon at the time. And here he stayed for, I think, 3 days with the king, telling his trip. And after that, he went then to Sevilla, to Spain. So that it's very clear why he would make a report to the king of Portugal before going to the kings who paid his trip. History is such an interesting science that we should not be offended, and we should not take it politically. I know the Italian Americans are very upset if he's not Italian, and the Spanish are not very happy that he is Portuguese. But I think we have to address history as a science, and it's more useful to know the truth than to cultivate some historical legends or lies that make us confused and make history difficult to understand.
Captain Barreto and other Portuguese Columbus theorists, Gondra feels that the life of Columbus portrayed in the history books has little to do with the truth.
Myth or fact, is Columbus Portuguese?
I think it was Portuguese because everything in his life tells us that he knew Portuguese very well. He spoke Portuguese very well. He wrote Portuguese very well, better than he could not write or speak Italian, it seems. Okay, but he could write very well Portuguese, as other languages, as for example Hebrew and Greek and Latin, and there is a tradition about him being Portuguese and son of Grandmaster of the Order of Christ.
Prince Ferdinand.
Yes, Prince Ferdinand. He was and a lady that was from the family of the first discoverers of Madeira, Zarco. Okay, and this tradition is very strong in here, and his signature, his Kabbalistic signature, shows that he was from that family.
Salvador
Zarco.
Fernandes Zarco.
Yeah, Salvador Fernandes Zarco.
But there is another, easier way to prove that Columbus was from Portugal. It doesn't involve the search for ancient DNA, nor does it require a long road trip. It only involves a map and a short drive to Cuba. Ah, yes, Cuba, land of sand, sun, discovered by Christopher Columbus and named by him because Cuba, Portugal, was the town of his birth? That's what they say in Portugal. Here's the Duke of Braganza, for instance.
The first main island he found, he named it Cuba. Then the islands around Cuba, some of them have names of villages in Alentejo around the little town of Cuba.
And then there's the late historian, Captain Augusto Barreto.
É carregador de Génova que não sabia quem era a família, que descobria, fazia aquelas navegações todas. Ele fê-lo porque era filho do nobre português, do Duque que também era navegador, o Duque de Beja.
Not to forget Vasco da Gama, the 19th.
E é interessante também que, à época, não existiria outra Cuba no mundo.
Sim, tudo indica que ele, que lá chegou, que tenha dado à terra o nome da terra onde teria nascido, eventualmente. Mas isso são especulações, embora haja escritores que já publicaram sobre isso. Mas eu estou firmemente convencido que ele era de origem portuguesa, só podia.
E pode dizer que à época não existiria outra Cuba senão a do Alentejo.
Eu não conheço, olhando para o mapa mundo, não conheço mais nenhumas Cubas senão a Cuba do Alentejo e a Cuba que ele descobriu. Não, julgo que não existe Cuba noutro sítio qualquer, talvez no Vietnã do Norte, não sei, mas eu desconheço a geografia dessas zonas.
All of these experts and more insist not only that Christopher Columbus was born in Cuba, Portugal, but that he was the illegitimate son of a Portuguese prince. So off we go to Cuba, Portugal, that is. There isn't much to see in Cuba. Here, for instance, is a church dating from the time of the Duke of Beja. It was on the grounds of this church where Columbus was believed to have been born to Isabel Sakara Zarco in a house that since has been torn down. His birth name, Salvador Fernandez Zarco, was later changed to Christopher Colon by the explorer himself. We'll get to that part of the story later. The Duke's plantation house next to the church is gone. A street named for Captain Barreto leads through the nearby village of Cuba to a tiny square and a statue of Columbus himself, gazing across the narrow street as though it were the great blue sea. Evaristo explains the statue, its meaning, and Cuba's astounding claim.
Here in the center of the village square in Cuba, Alentejo, southern Portugal, is this monument honoring its most famous son, Christopher Columbus. The plaque here reads, "Historic truth." The first truth is that Columbus always hid his true origins and his true identity. That for 500 years, history has accepted an uncertainty, meaning that the story about him being from Genoa has never really been proven. Recently, however, notable historians and researchers have concluded that Christopher Colon was Portuguese. He was the son of the Infante Don Fernando, Prince Fernando, Duke of Beja, and of Lady Isabel Gonçalves Zarco. His real name was Salvador Fernandez Zarco, and he was born in the Alentejo here in Cuba.
Columbus born in Cuba, Portugal? That's a bold claim for a nearly anonymous village. But the story goes one step further on the other side of the statue.
On the other side of the monument to Columbus is this plaque. It reads, Alentejo, the motherland of the discoveries. It says that on the 28th of October, 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered an island that he named Cuba. There was no other Cuba in the world at the time except this Cuba here in Alentejo, Portugal. But the other sites that he also named in the New World, in the places adjacent to Cuba, have names from the same places that are adjacent to Cuba here in the Alentejo in southern Portugal.
A look at a map of the Caribbean shows this claim to be true. Surrounding the Cuba of the Americas are more than 40 islands and locations with the same name as those adjacent to the Cuba of Portugal. This seems too astounding to be mere coincidence. Place names found on a map of Cuba, Portugal, match those surrounding Cuba in the Caribbean. The explorers consider this to be geographic DNA, on par with human DNA. The conclusions reached is the notion that the supposed mother of Columbus, Isabel Zarco, was the daughter of Jewish Italian explorer João Gonçalves Zarco, and thus giving the explorer Jewish ascendancy. Other historical researchers have come to the same or similar conclusions. British historian Cecil Roth felt the cipher was a substitute for Kaddish, a Jewish prayer recited by mourners after the death of a relative. And indeed, the sons of Columbus did say Kaddish for their father when he died. And there was Simon Wiesenthal, the noted Nazi hunter, whose book, Sails of Hope, built the case that Columbus's voyage was motivated by a desire to find safe haven for the 800,000 Jews subject to expulsion from Spain during the Inquisition. To show solidarity with the Jews of Spain, Jewish scholars say that he set sail for the New World on August 6, 1492, the very day the Jews were given the choice of converting to Catholicism, leaving Spain, or being killed.
So what was the atmosphere like here when Columbus and his crew left? Was it festive? Were they excited about this search for the New World?
Well, the day that they left, it was calm. But the days leading up to his departure were total chaos, because the Queen had ordered all the Jews to leave Spain and leave all their property behind. And the docks were just full of Jews trying to board ships. So it was total chaos.
Wow. Does that likely confirm Columbus himself was a Jew?
Well, yes and no.
So, was Columbus hiding his Jewish heritage? Or is that a myth of history, a misreading of Columbus's true faith? The researchers from Raha want to find out. Evaristo stops the carriage and escorts Horner into the Mother of God convent, formerly a Jewish synagogue built in the time of Columbus.
So this used to be a synagogue up until 1492, when the Jews were driven out of Spain. In 1495, they turned it into a Christian building. They turned it into a church and a convent. And this convent, out of all the convents in the city, was especially favored by the Christopher Columbus family. And it was actually the pantheon, it says there, the pantheon of Christopher Columbus's family, and where his granddaughters are buried.
Fantastic.
So why would they choose a former synagogue as their final resting place and their family mausoleum, their family pantheon? It's very, very strange.
And then it's into the synagogue turned church, where Evaristo shows Horner the tombs of the Columbus granddaughters.
This is the tomb of 4 of Christopher Columbus's granddaughters here in Sevilla at the convent of the Mother of God. They endowed this convent with funds so that they could be buried here and have their family plot. This used to be a Jewish synagogue.
Evaristo also shows Horner the ornate altar that separates the tombs of Hernan Cortez's widow and daughter, and then reveals a startling fact.
You know that in 1495, when they turned this into a convent, they gave it to the female branch of the Dominican order. And that's the same order that Isabella commissioned to start the Inquisition.
A few weeks after his visit to the Jewish ghetto in Seville, Evaristo finds himself at a cemetery in Madrid with Vatican lawyer Luis Castro. Evaristo has found research that links Columbus's triangular signature of dots and letters with a cryptic inscription resembling 3 balls in a triangular shape. This shape is said to be found in Jewish cemeteries. They decide to do some research.
Well, this is clearly a Jewish tombstone. It has the Star of David. And here again, we have the repetitive 3, 3, and 3. You have the 3 balls, 3 balls, 3 balls, which are depicted as seeds because they're blossoming into the branches that are again doubled, which represent the 12 tribes of Israel.
Further into the cemetery, they find what they are looking for.
The 3 balls depicted like that are not seeds, obviously. They may be the symbol of money changers, or money lenders, bankers, as was used back in the Middle Ages with the Jewish community and also with the Templars, who were bankers.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're still used today by many credit establishments all over the world.
There are other pieces of evidence that seem significant to the question of Columbus's faith. In his will, he left money to a Jew who lived at the entrance to the Jewish quarter in Lisbon. He tithed a tenth of his income to the poor, a Jewish custom. And when he returned to Spain after his discovery of the New World, his first 2 letters were not to Isabel and Ferdinand, but to Luis de Santangel and Gabriel Sanchez, the prominent Jews who had helped fund his voyage. Is this evidence another sign of Columbus's Jewish heritage? Very possibly, say many researchers.
If the family, Zyko family, was Jewish, and Colon's mother was Jewish, his father was not.
And that prevailed?
I think so. I think so because he was very, very, he was received as a, and he told us, he wrote that he was from royal family, and he was not the first admiral of his family, and his father was an admiral.
So cloth tanners from Genoa were not admirals?
No, this is we know that that's a good theory, but not a true one.
So why the cover-up?
It's not a cover-up. It's something someone invented, because nor Colin nor his son Ferdinand, for example, tell us about Colin being Genovese. Okay, he tells us different things about his father and his ancestry. That's not from Italy or from Genova. Everything Colin wrote about himself and his family comes to the same point, and this is royal family, Portuguese royal family.
If he was supposed to spy, it was not very clever to everybody know that he is the son of a Portuguese prince. The Spanish would not believe him.
Before Columbus's 4th voyage, he was arrested. And he was arrested for treating the Indians poorly in the New World. But you don't feel like that was why he was arrested. You feel like it was another reason.
I believe that this was an excuse to arrest him. The main reason was that they discovered he was a Portuguese spy.
Perhaps there is more proof that Columbus was a secret agent in the Treaty of Tordesillas. The 1494 treaty divided the world between Spain and Portugal. The purpose of the treaty was to settle conflicts over the land discovered by Columbus. But before the treaty was ratified, King John II insisted that Portugal get a much larger slice of the world than originally agreed to. The king wanted the dividing line to be moved west, which would give Portugal domain in 2 countries only they knew existed, Brazil and Canada. That is why Evaristo will examine an official copy of the Great Treaty that divided the world. Evaristo is convinced by references to Columbus in the treaty that he helped King John II in his demand to move the dividing line 180 leagues to the west, giving domain to Portugal in Brazil and Canada. Such help on the part of Columbus would amount to a true act of espionage.
Let me just ask you a question point blank. Myth or fact, was Columbus a secret agent for King John II?
It's fact. We must understand two things, very important. Secret was always the great goal of this enterprise, discoveries, since Henry Navigator. But with John II, this was even bigger. This secrecy was even bigger because there were the Spanish looking for the same things that we Portuguese were. So John II had to prevent the Spanish to get there first, and it was why he tried with Colón to divert them to other places, not to the South Atlantic, but to the Antilles, to be lost there and not to follow Portuguese to the south.
Occupy their time.
Yeah, I think so. And Colón was one of the main subjects to, or main of those agents, Portuguese agents that tried to do that.
So he'd be 007?
Yeah, perhaps at that time.
If Columbus was indeed a secret agent, then this is the smoking gun. A safe conduct letter issued by King John II of Portugal in the same year that he arrived in Spain for the first time. The document identifies Columbus as the most esteemed friend and agent of King John II. It's both a get-out-of-jail card and a license to kill that only a 007 agent would have. It was Columbus's own son who referred to this document for the first time in the biography of the admiral that he wrote. The document was rumored to have been lost, and nobody had seen it for over 500 years. But we rediscovered it in the Archive of the Indies in Seville, in the reserved section.
The case of Christopher Columbus has no ending. A partial mystery that remains to be continued.
To get the latest episodes of The Remnant, click subscribe to be notified of upcoming episodes.